It's a pretty straightforward 30 nautical mile leg from the River Yealm to Kingswear on the River Dart. It does, however, start off with the pilotage out of the River Yealm, which must be handled carefully. You've got that sandbar, which we talked about on the last video. And remember that the two port hand marks, which you'll be keeping to your starboard side on the way out, are at the eastern end of the sandbar, and there's no mark at the western end, so you must stay south of those marks for a good 200 yards or so before drifting back on to pick up the transit marks off the shore. Heading east, it's very important to stay on that transit until you're south of St Werburgh Church, which is clearly visible on the shoreline. Keeping St Werburgh's on a relative bearing of 002 or greater will keep you clear of the West Ebb rocks. I maintained this track until I had Gara Point on a relative bearing of 030 degrees before turning to port on course. Once to the eastern end of Bigbury Bay, I kept my depth at least 20 metres to avoid all of the rocks that are quite close to start point. You'll see quite a lot of boats here fishing, but they know the local waters, and for navigation on a cruise it's much easier just to stay in deeper water. For stronger tidal flow, I prefer to stay south of Skerries Bank, and then once past the port hand mark there, head off towards Homestone port hand mark on the outer approaches into the River Dart. There are lots of options for mooring in the River Dart, and the first thing to do if you haven't got somewhere booked is, once you get inside Checkstone, to call DartNav and ask for advice. My preference, Dart Haven, is on the Kingswear side of the river. Lots of walk ashore berths here, and there's a really good ferry linking you to the Dartmouth town centre, which runs every few minutes. Quite a lot of moorings on the River Dart are on pontoons with no walk ashore access, so you might need your tender or to use a water taxi. On the northern end of Dartmouth you have Dart Marina on the western side and Noss Marina on the eastern side, and then further up, my favourite when it's available, is the Mooring Buoys at Ditcham. There are a couple of really good pubs in Kingswear, including the Steam Packet, which has got great views across Dartmouth, particularly good for the evening, for sundown, and there's some good food to be had on this side of the river as well. But as I say, there's a ferry which crosses to Dartmouth every few minutes, and the steam train which takes you up the Dart Valley to Paynton if you're interested in a day out ashore. Dartmouth and Kingswear are well worth a visit. I'm a big fan of Dart Haven Marina, and I think their facilities are excellent. They've also got a Chandler's right on site. Well, I hope you found that useful or enjoyable, or even better, both. Don't forget, hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. This really helps the channel grow.